Society today is driven by numbers. Everywhere you look, you'll see pie graphs, pie charts, bar graphs, line graphs, numbers, statistics, percentages, everywhere. I'm a member of the school's consulting club, and when we're not doing consulting projects for clients around the school, our leaders like to introduce us to certain things we need to watch out for in real life when you're dealing with numbers and statistics. You can find a lot of misleading data in the news, politics, online, just about everywhere. And what I'm about to tell you today will help you recognize some of these fallacies and will let you make educated decisions on your own without being misled by these numbers. The three things to watch out for are causation versus correlation, sample populations, and leading questions. Now the first thing, causation versus correlation. Sorry if my handwriting's not that great. Causation is when one event causes another. Correlation is simply two events happening without any relationship. The example I was given is that since the year 2005, number of pirates on the oceans have decreased, while global warming has increased. So therefore, to reduce global warming, we need more pirates. However, that's not the case because this is a correlation. The two events are not related at all, although it's a little bit extreme. Here's a more subtle one. 80% of all fatal accidents occur within 2 miles of the victim's home. It sounds convincing, right? However, if you think about it, it's also a correlation again. This is because most of a person's driving is actually done within 2 miles of their home. And so the number 80%, although it's true, it's misleading because you drive more around your home, so you're more likely to have an accident around there. And this is kind of small, but in this chart shows the number of drivers in fatal crashes in the year 1988. And this first one on the left is the age group of 16 to 19. If you'll notice, it's actually smaller than the other age groups, which may lead some people to believe that you're actually safer if you're a 16 to 19-year-old driving. However, this is not the case because 16 to 19-year-olds often drive less than other age groups. What the graph should look like is this: fatal crashes per 100 million miles driven. In this graph, the age group 16 to 19 is much higher because although 16 to 19-year-olds drive a lot less than the other age groups, they have relatively more accidents, a relatively higher number of accidents. In this graph, which is the most complaints for airlines in the year of 2000, the company with the most complaints is United Airlines with 252, and the least is Alaska Airlines with 13. Now this graph may lead you to believe that Alaska Airlines and Southwest Airlines have the best quality and service, but this is not true because these also happen to be the smallest companies with the fewest number of flyers. And although the top companies have more complaints, they also have more flyers. What the graph should look like is this: complaints per revenue passenger enplanement, which is basically complaints per passenger. Over here, you'll still see that United Airlines has the most complaints, but Southwest and Alaskan Airlines have switched because Alaskan Airlines, although they have overall less complaints, they also have much less passengers than Southwest Airlines. So by introducing this new factor, we can see that Southwest Airlines actually has a better service and less complaints. And finally, in this graph, which shows the number of people injured in New York while driving a vehicle, the red portion indicates the people who were driving drunk, and purple indicates people that were driving sober. Now, just glancing at this graph may lead you to believe that it's actually safer to drive drunk. But this is not the case because the number of people in New York driving drunk is much less than the number of people driving sober, but they account for a disproportionate number of accidents occurring in New York City. And so that's causation versus correlation. The second thing I want to tell you about is sample populations. What you need to watch out for is biased or inaccurate sample populations. This occurs when a poll is distributed to a select group of people or a group of people that doesn't really represent the entire group that the surveyors are looking for. For example, say a restaurant decides to have a poll online asking users to rate the quality of their service and their food. This is biased for two reasons. One, not everyone is going to have access to the internet and a computer. Two, the people who are visiting the website are most likely people who are fans of the restaurant and are more likely to give it a higher rating. A famous historical example of statistical sample population bias is in the 1940 election of Harry S. Truman over Thomas Dewey. The night of the election, the newspaper Chicago Tribune accidentally printed the wrong title. They printed Dewey defeats Truman. Here's Truman holding up the newspaper triumphantly. What happened here was that the editors mistakenly trusted the poll surveys from the weeks incoming to the election, and those poll surveys were based on a biased sample population. See, the technique they used was something called quota sampling, where they took a survey of a certain number of men, women, blacks, whites, age groups, income groups, etc. Now, this seems like a good idea at first because it gives you a slice of the whole population, but it's actually not a good idea because you don't know where the categories are going to end. You never know when you're going to miss a category that's going to be the determining factor of a person's poll choice. And so that explains why the Chicago Tribune printed the wrong headline. Finally, you have to watch out for leading questions. Leading questions are questions that imply or suggest an answer. The most basic and probably most applicable of these you hear in classrooms all the time. Does everyone understand? This question implies that everyone does understand, and those who don't understand feel like they are going against what the asker wants by saying, I don't understand. And so they refuse to stand up and say that they're not quite certain of what they're asking. If you rephrase the question as, who doesn't understand? Then you're implying that there are people who don't understand, and the ones that don't will not be scared to stand up and say, I don't get it. Some more examples of these are, how much will prices go up next year? Or, do you get along well with your boss? These are all leading questions, and the way to fix these would be to ask, do you think prices will go up next year? Or, how's your relationship with your boss? So how is this useful to you? Like I previously stated, there are statistics and numbers everywhere, and you'll encounter them in all aspects of life. And now that you know just some of the things that can go wrong with statistics and numbers, be careful when dealing with percentages, graphs, and charts. Don't blindly believe, but use them as a reference. Take in the information, use it to make your own evaluation, and always be skeptical. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your wonderful speech. It was clearly well researched, and you had the visual aids, which were the point of it was the objective of your speech. And you had all of your papers down here. It was clear that it was well prepared, and you'd seen all of these graphs before. Every so often you were kind of looking downwards. I wasn't completely sure. You probably had a speech out here or something. You wanted to double check. Maybe you were checking your visual aids. For the most part, you kept your eyes on the audience. You looked left and you looked right. And it was clear that you were trying to make eye contacts and everything. One of the things you might want to consider next time is, even though you're writing everything, when you're writing everything, you have to have your back turned. It takes time away from your speech. So instead of talking to everyone like you and keeping your eye contact, it took time to turn around. Maybe you want to prepare have it written out beforehand next time. And also, you had the subconscious thing that everyone has sometimes when you're talking and you're kind of rocking back and forth, and you completely don't notice it, but it's kind of distracting when you're moving. When a person is moving back and forth like this, it can be distracting for the audience. And I thought it was really good how I thought it was really good throughout the speech that you clearly had it known, but you could have gone through with more vocal variety. Like when you were talking about how outrageous, how people presented the detail, their information differently, how outrageous you thought it was, how you thought it was okay, just the tone, inflection of your voice, just to portray your opinions to the audience, instead of just reciting it from memory. You want to show how these are your thoughts and opinions. And this was a really great speech, and I can't wait to hear your next one.